Hello, welcome to Mothership Gear. My name is Spencer Alfonso. I'm the co-owner and creative director of Ildefonso Inc. And today we have a great episode for you today. My friend Spam, also known as Paul, is here today with us. And he is a music video producer, director, and a singer-songwriter. And you, Spam, are the owner of a modified... No, that's the wrong one.
Oh, yeah.
You are the owner of a Fender alternate reality 7?
It's actually 12.
12. Oh, dyslexia again.
Yeah.
So the owner of a Fender alternate reality 12. So yeah, Spam, why don't you tell us about how long you've had this guitar for?
Yeah, so I was kind of interested in the Fender alternate reality line that was sort of, I don't know when it started coming out, but they started having little things at NAMM, and there were some really funky things. So 2019 is when this guitar came out, so I already kind of knew it was coming out. I knew that I was interested in it, and it's actually, out of all the funky ones, they have weird pickup configurations and all that kind of stuff. This one is just a replica, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, because I was reading on the website them mentioning kind of how it was influenced by stuff happening in the folk music scene with, I want to say they referenced maybe the Beatles and they referenced the Byrds, and then you kind of referenced similar artists. So it's kind of coming from that heritage of 60s folk.
Yeah. So the big 12-string guitar that was kind of the famous one that the Beatles were playing and the Byrds were playing was the Rickenbacker 12-string. And so Fender just kind of wanted an answer to that. There was such a huge market for a really specific period of time. So actually, one of the guys from the Mamas and the Papas played this on stage. I think Monterey Pop Festival or maybe at Woodstock or one of the two. But yeah, I think John played anyway. And then so that kind of period was the jangly guitar sort of era, and they were all trying to get that same 12-string sound.
Yeah. So, yeah, what exactly is it? How would you describe it to someone who's doesn't know what you're holding in your hand?
Yeah. So, first off, it's a 12-string guitar, which means that it has 12 strings. But those 12 strings aren't each individual. Some of the metal guitars, they'll be 7 and 8 strings. Each of those is individual. This is more like a mandolin, where it has the strings in runs. So there's the top 4 strings. There's the E, A, D, and G. They all have the low normal string, and then they have a little string that's an octave higher right next to it. So if I play, for example, the low E string, I can play it separately, but together the two strings resonating makes kind of so you have the little octave. So that makes all this extra shimmer and kind of even chorusing effects, because you have the low string kind of resonating slightly different. Even if I'm tuned perfectly, it's just going to be slightly different. And so you get some really cool, big, jangly sound.
So there's no chorus on that guitar right now?
There is just there's just a compressor. That's it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that literally sounds like a chorus pedal.
Yeah, it's before chorus pedals existed. So it was a time when people were just, trying to make cool sounds.
Yeah, it's a very poppy, bright, jangly sound. That's awesome. So if someone couldn't find this exact model, what would you recommend to them?
Yeah, so actually why I found this model was because I couldn't find kind of within my price range a lot of other options, except for there is a Danelectro. I think that they make some other 12 strings, and I played a lot of them, and actually there's a lot of comparability. So I think the Danelectro is quite a bit cheaper.
I think Hans has the Danelectro.
Nice.
So that will be on another episode.
Okay,
eventually.
Sweet. Yeah.
Rad. Yeah, I had never heard of this guitar. I'm noticing those pickups look like Brandon's Mustang bass pickups. So what's that configuration, and how can you maybe break down how each of those pickups sound in the different selector types that you have?
Yeah, totally. So these are kind of similar to the Mustang, but also the P-Bass, I think, was the first that sort of used them. So it's it's a really specific Fender thing that Leo was messing around with at one point, and it was just trying to get rid of hum, like P-bass pickups do. So I don't remember the exact name of them. But yeah, so basically in the middle position, it's using both pickups. I feel like that's my favorite position for this guitar. I feel like it sounds the most natural and the most like bright in a way. So here you have middle pickup. And then the neck pickup is right here. A little darker. But also, like, I don't know, I feel like the pickups individually, the way that they're wired for this, are a little bit hotter individually. So I'll use that sometimes for leads. And then here's the bridge pickup, which is like brighter, but it loses some of the lower frequencies. So I like for big chords, kind of the middle one. Anyway.
Yeah, they call it split single coil pickups.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, usually they have some kind of name, but the way that Fender markets this one, it's a little mysterious. Like,
yeah,
there's some paragraphs about the heritage, but they don't really go hardcore like some of the other guitar descriptions do. But maybe that's because, is this still available for purchase on their site, or maybe I'm just only able to find kind of, yeah, because someone here says, what happened to the alternate reality? So they must not be trying to sell it right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, all of the alternate realities were kind of a limited run. This was, so they have like really high-end ones that are more like American-made. This one's actually Mexican-made, but the neck's really nice, and I dig it. But yeah, I think it's the same kind of technology as the P-Bass and the Mustang, and they do, yeah, split single coil is what they call it. But basically, it's a way that you have kind of the single coil sound, kind of the snappy, poppy sound, but it doesn't hum. So,
yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. So 2019 is that when you bought this then?
Yeah, I was kind of keeping my eye out, and I tried a Rick 12 string, and I tried the Danelectro. I mean, actually the Danelectro, they didn't have one available, so I found this one in the store and just kind of played it like 3 times. Like, I live kind of close to a Guitar Center, and I kept going back and messing around, and I was like, yeah, I just got to do it. So
that's cool. So you were able to hear it and kind of develop a relationship to the sound of it before you bought it, which, if you guys watch this show, that's actually rare. Usually guitar players, we just buy off sight unseen, or whatever that phrase is. We buy it without listening to it. So that's cool that you got to kind of know what you were buying before you bought it.
Yeah, and I'm glad I did too, because I played the Rick. So I think the Rickenbacker kind of famously is like sort of hard to tune, like the way that the tuning pegs are. And then the neck is really thin. And I have like, you know, I'm 6'1", so I kind of got like decent sized hands. So it's like I needed the wider neck. And so getting to play the 2 was nice.
So you're saying the Rickenbacker felt too small?
It was just, yeah, I felt like I was stumbling over myself. But I mean, obviously, if I got acquainted with the instrument more, I'm sure it wouldn't be too bad. But yeah.
That's rad. Okay. And then what kind of projects do you use this on? What is the function in your arsenal that did you pull this out for?
Yeah, so I mean, I got into this specifically because I just really dig like mid 60s through early 70s music. And so I use it as just like a kind of like a cheat code to instantly sound like sort of British Invasion or whatever. It's actually interesting, in the 90s, people were using these for the same exact reason, like the Dandy Warhols. I mean, they weren't using maybe this exact guitar, but 12-string guitars. Also the Dandy Warhols and Brian Jonestown Massacre. So just bands that were like in the 90s, kind of looking back at the 60s and trying to get that jangly sound. Oh, you know, actually XTC, REM, I think, also sort of 12-string revival users. So yeah, that's what I'm using. And I mean, it's really nice for just big, full, you know, chord. And it's like that kind of thing. But yeah, like, doesn't that just instantly sound like a pop song from the 60s? But also, when you do leads or kind of like little licks and stuff like that, the 2 strings resonating at the same time just give a unique octave sound. So, you know, like the kinks and stuff like that.
Totally. Yeah, that's a great sound, and yeah, it's awesome to have that in your arsenal. So what are the go-to kind of sounds that you use? You said you use the lead line because it has that octave thing. You use the big chords. You said you use the rhythm pickup selection for the hotter stuff. You use the bridge for kind of big chords. Is that what it was?
Yeah, so I use middle for big chords. I use the I would say I use the bridge for like lead stuff.
Okay. It's kind of a nice cut through.
Yeah. I think I don't wind up using the neck a ton on this guitar. Yeah.
And then what pedals do you find pair best with this guitar for your application?
Well, this is kind of a joke, but a tuner pedal because there's 12 strings and they can go out. Yeah. I think that this model, so the alternate reality is cool because it's got a better string tree, so it stays in tune better, and then a better like intonation setup. So that's the alternate reality is just that they made the guitar better over time. So that's kind of the concept. But yeah, so you have to have a tuner always, but definitely for this. And then another kind of like if you ever get into 12 strings and start learning about them, the compressor pedal is like an important part to get that specific sound, because for the ringing chords, the compressor kind of like keeps the sound going longer. It sort of pulls the quiet parts up and the loud parts down a little bit. So that squish is kind of indicative of the sound of the birds. And the Beatles, because the Beatles were going straight into a console and running it maybe through two different compressors, like the Neve thing and all that sort of stuff. 1176. Yeah. So I use JB Nano Janglebox compressor for this guitar.
What are they trying to emulate with that?
They're trying to emulate specifically the bird's tone. So it's I think in the studio they just were running it through two studio compressors. So like live, it wasn't really even a thought process. Like live, I think he was just into a Vox or whatever. Yeah. But compression through an amp, you have to turn it up really loud to get the compression and stuff like that. So it's just nice to be able to have like that compressed sound, chords ring out, notes go for a long time. And then also I think because each string, there's the two strings together, so maybe the way that you attack the string, one would ring louder or whatever, but it kind of pulls up the other string a little bit, so you're just getting the full thick octavey sound.
Rad. And then what about the amp that you find yourself pairing this guitar with?
Yeah, well, I mean, another just kind of like traditional 60s-y, like mid 60s kind of amp is a Vox, and they're already super bright. I mean, a lot of the traditional tones of the instrument are to try and sort of be bright, so I do like the Vox, but honestly, just like I have a Blues Junior, like a Fender Blues Junior, and it works well. I mean, I can always kind of EQ if I need to get a little bit more shimmer and stuff, so yeah.
And then what about strings, and have you set this up at all? So is there any kind of changes you made to the guitar?
This one I've kept pretty much the same. I definitely got like a professional setup, and I always kind of like work on the intonation with it just to kind of keep it so that, because I think up higher sometimes they'll have problems just on literally any sort of 12 string. But no, I'm using just kind of Diodario, the 12 strings. There are these like flat wound pyramid strings that I've heard so many mixed reviews on. They're the same types of strings that like the Beatles or the Byrds might have used at the time, but the technology has grown, so I kind of actually lean towards the modern strings. They last longer, don't break as easily supposedly, so yeah. So I'm using Diodario 12s with I don't know, the smallest string. I mean, that's the interesting thing about a 12 string actually is that it has a 0.08 string, which is just like super light and breakable on the G because the G octave has to be so high. So actually, let's see. So it's like, like. So if I just play that string open, it's like that high already. So those break a lot, and so it's nice to have the modern strings that don't snap. Totally.
Yeah, it's easy to idealize the concept of using vintage style strings, but when you're changing out it all the time, yeah, I could understand how you would arrive at that. Well, yeah, I mean, that kind of answers a lot of my questions. I think this is a really cool sounding guitar, and yeah, it's a shame that it's not as available. There was, like you said, it was kind of a limited run.
Yeah, I got lucky, but I think the Danelectro that's still, I'm pretty sure, still in process. I mean, honestly, if you want the 12 string sound, anyone will do it. I think I would recommend making sure that you can play it in person, or maybe if you can't, like having a good return policy for it, just because the necks on the cheaper ones, sometimes you get a good neck, sometimes you don't, sort of thing. So I would just recommend trying to test it out.
Rad.
But yeah, any 12 string will get you the kind of, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great sound. Well, where can people find you if they want to follow along on your musical journey?
Yeah, so I'm Spammerns on Instagram, and that's probably a good place to start. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for bringing this amazing guitar. The give me the name again. It's
the Fender Electric 12 is what it's based on. So I guess Fender alternate universe, Fender alternate reality Electric 12.
It's a wild name.
XII.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you for bringing the Fender alternate reality 12 to the studio today. And thank you guys for checking out this episode. If you guys want to visit us at our website, you could check us out at ildefonso.co or add us on social media at Ildefonso Inc. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.